Hello there, my fellow architects. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, Episode 4, Blending Small and Cozy. So, something to focus on is the estimated harvest. They're becoming increasingly more skilled at grain farming than they did year one. And as a result, my two farmers have a much higher yield than they did last year. Last year, I think the yield was, we netted, well, some of that is foraging. But so it's hard to say exactly what this farm netted, but it was not as much as it's going to be this year, and it's going to increase. And it will also increase significantly through technology, and also potentially nobility. I don't want to get too far into nobility because we're not, that's like kind of later game. But it's a work in progress, but people can have noble titles, which, like if I had a noble that had the title of Master of Farms, it would increase the grain farms efficiency by, 10%. Or the Master of the Feast, bakeries by 25%. It's a big way, an easy way to get like a huge empire-wide boon, which can be nice. Once you are ready for nobles and chambers and the like. Alright, it's forge time. So, pausing. Deleting the remaining jobs. And all my odd jobbers should then swarm this grain. Yep, there they go. Swarming the field of wild grains in order to harvest. So it is forage season. We're not going to have forage seasons forever, so don't you worry. Once we have good farms, it's going to be an afterthought that I won't have to micromanage. It's just really early game. It's pretty important to make sure that you have food because we went from like 20 months of food and we're now down to 9 months of food. So we need to bolster that back up so we can survive until next harvest year. Because most of the food in the game is harvested around late summer, so you need at least often, unless you want to rely on some hunting or butchering people or butchering animals, it's useful to have at least a year's worth of food, if not more. The more, the merrier. I've never, yet in this game had to result to butchering people for meat. I haven't gone full Wendigo. It's probably a good thing. But I cannot stress this enough. It is also a game that, like, it's very easy to all of a sudden be starving and dying. And more so than a lot of the other games like this, in my opinion. Like, more so than RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress. You can just go from, hey, everything looks great, to, oh my god, it's all on fire. Like the community meme of Troy getting the pizza. Like, this game plays like Troy getting the pizza. In fact, it was designed for that specific purpose. There was, the single developer of this game approached this game and design this game with the theory in mind that a lot of the other like city-state or village or colony builders are really difficult early on, and then they get way easier as time progresses. And he didn't like the difficulty curve of a lot of those games where it's like steep and then tapers off or even gets easier over time. So this game only gets more difficult and more complex as you're managing more things. So it is not a game that is easy. It's designed to be difficult, essentially. Alright, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to furlough my bakers. I'm going to disagree with the AI here and be like, no, I don't need 3 janitors. Because maintenance, the backlog of maintenance is, I'll do 2 janitors, but the backlog of maintenance is not that bad. And then have more delivery men gathering the stuff that's out here. So my odd jobbers are done with the mushrooms. They're heading down to the fruit and veggies. And then the delivery men are collecting the grain. We'll do one more delivery man. And these, I'm going to raise the priority. These roles aren't being filled. Oh, you know what it is? No, I'm not going to do that. It's, they're not being filled because my odd jobbers aren't near the base. Because they're down here foraging. And I don't really want to tell the odd jobbers to stop foraging, if I can help it. Because this is my precious food. Yeah, the food storage will also affect the citizens' mood, so they become worried when there's food scarcity, and the happiness drops. Right now, everyone's 100% happy. But, yeah. That's because we're early game and they're not asking for much. So the expectations are pretty low. Okay, every apple... I'm mostly concerned about the edible food. I don't really care too much about the cotton. Because I'm not really processing it just yet. Would it be worth running a road to the forage sites? No. Not in my opinion. Because this is probably the last year or second to last year that we're going to rely upon foraging. So it's going to be, it would be a project that we would only use for 1 or 2 more years, and it would take like a year to build. So spending a year building a road that we use for 1 year is not great. Plus these roads are only a 5% speed gain. So think of the total amount of time it would take to build said road for a 5% speed gain. The cost benefit not really there. So here's the harvest, the grain harvest. So you see the grain's left in the field, then it gets hauled into the bakery warehouse where it is ready to be processed into bread. And then the delivery men here are pulling in the grain, both from here, but also from the wider area as well. So like some of the people delivering this are odd jobbers, placing resources in stockpile. So it's always useful to have like a decent amount of odd jobbers around your colony because it will make things run smooth. So let's see. There's still some fruit. And, oh, all the veggies got collected. That's faster than I thought it would be. So yeah, I don't think we really have to worry about the delivery. All the mushrooms got collected. So it's just some of this fruit. And there's only maybe like 2 more shipments of fruit and like 3 or 4 more shipments of cotton. And then they'll have it all cleaned up. Alright, let's unfurlough the bakers. And now we're back to baking bread. We are completely full of wood. We don't have any more storage for wood anywhere. That's just because we're clear cutting for farms, and it's going to cause excess of wood. So if it rots, it rots. I mean, I don't want it to rot, but there's very little I could do right now about that. Was the blue area with the exclamation marks? The blue area with the exclamation marks are probably tasks that can't be done, generally. Oh, this? Yes. So this is a market construction, but I don't have any furniture to actually build a market. So it's essentially, the furniture is unobtainable. I already know. I'm going to build a carpenter soon, so that's not a problem. Alright, odd jobbers, let's start building those houses that I promised. So I think what I want to do is design it like a little agrarian cul-de-sac. They're going to use these services out here, so I'm not going to like reinvent the wheel. And just to fit things in, even though apartments aren't all that space efficient, I'm gonna put 2 apartments in there just because it nestles into this area quite nicely. And then go back to longhouses. I might actually not want it so close to the road. I'm gonna reassess that. I want some space to be able to add decorations later on. Alright, that's good for now. Also going to have an alternative path around here. And there's a lot more room for housing expansion. This is going to allow us to have our first, like, population boon. And almost everyone introduced into this population boon are going to be hired on as farmers. I also might want to consider where I should set up a woodcutting zone and a carpentry zone, but I'll do that after this housing project is done. Because once these houses are done, I actually want to destroy this stuff, because I don't really need these structures anymore, as they were temporary. With that in mind, it also would be a good idea to move the shrines down here or closer to where people live, as they don't like to have to commute very far to the shrines. So, that would cut into the road. So maybe I'll put a shrine here. Is everyone all believing in the same thing still? Yep. Okay. Whatever. They're all believing in the same god. Just by chance. So these initial houses are nearly done. And it wouldn't surprise me if the odd job or the people that work in the farms like immediately move into them, as they're far closer to the workplaces than where they were previously living. So there we go. The Cretonian food vendor is already living in here because it's very close to where he works. And as more of these structures are built, I'm going to break down the old structures, because the old structures are just temporary for year 1. Okay, cool. Other useful things. Let's take a look at noise. So as you can see, it's a little noisy in this apartment as the noise from the bakery is bleeding in. So I am going to go to the structures tab and double up the walls around the houses here. So as they have a bit more of a natural noise barrier. So let's see if this little change helps them out with their noise problem. And the other thing I can do is to create like walls around the entryway of the bakery so that the noise is more contained. One of the issues of having houses near workplaces is like the bleed of ambient noise, but like that's fine. So smart remove. Nobody's living here now. You're all vacating. We're going to break down these old structures and relocate them to the new homes. Let's take a look at the noise map again. That didn't really do very much. You know what I could do? Let's get rid of this apartment, and I'll rethink the layout a little bit so that we have more noise-retaining walls. Easier to fix the issue now before people really settle in, right? Flying, thank you for the resub. Cheers. So one of the other things I wanted to do, heading into the winter, is a second grain farm. So that we're less reliant upon foraging. And then, once I have a decent amount of grain farms, also consider fruit orchards. Alright, how's that noise map now? Good. It's loud, but it doesn't bleed into that house. And we have space for 13 more, which would, if I emitted all 13, raise our population up to... So I'm going to emit everyone. Up to our first level. Unlocking laboratories. A new level has been bestowed upon your name, Emir. An Emir is a chosen one, destined to lead his people to greatness. In order to secure future growth, we must now turn to ingenuity. So when your population exceeds 25, you unlock laboratory and are given a boost to happiness and immigration. So a laboratory is a administrative building that allows you to generate research points. Research points in this game are similar to maybe going medieval, where you have to have people regularly work, well, less like going medieval actually. The way it works is you have to have people regularly researching to keep your knowledge up. Because if you, like, let's say I put 24 people into a laboratory and they generate 1,000 research. If I fire all 20 of them, or 24 of them or whatever, then my knowledge will go back down to 0. So in order to unlock research projects, like let's say I wanted to unlock metal smelting, I would need 120 research, which would mean I would need a certain amount of people always working in a laboratory all the time to retain that knowledge. There are later game ways to boost your knowledge with like libraries to store it and the like, and you can also educate people so that they're better at being researchers. But that's much late game. There's a lot of functions in the research tree that looks like, oh man, I should get this really, really early on. And again, it is a bit of a noob trap. The amount of a lot of the research projects in this game only benefit you at economies of scale. Which means, for instance, if I wanted to rush to get a library really early on in game, the resources needed to get said library, meaning like the woodcutters for the paper makers to make the paper, and then the library only produces a passive bonus to already researching researchers, it's going to cost me more to upkeep a library than the library is actually going to offer to my city. And there's a lot of other industries like that are noob traps. Other ones might be like taverns. The amount of resources and manpower required to run a tavern is quite high, and dedicating your workforce too early on to the brewing and the alcohol making and running the tavern is a bit of a noob trap. And there's a bunch of other noob traps like that in this game, where like, unless your people are absolutely demanding said service, as long as they're happy, in my opinion. So we have some basic homes around here. We still have 5 open houses. Let's take a look at that noise map again. So I'm gonna not build houses towards the city center anymore. I'm gonna expand the houses. I'm gonna add 2 more houses. And yes, I am paving over some of the wild grains here. I know. I'm fine with that. And I'm gonna build houses towards the east. Also, working to avoid high fertility. So I'm gonna maybe build the last house. This little cul-de-sac is not getting larger than this. This is the full extent of it. So this is my agrarian farming cul-de-sac. There we go. So we'll have all these houses built, and this is where all my farmers and bakers are going to live. And then once that's built, we'll work out carpentry and woodcutting. Grow crops faster on tiles with more water. So I've explained this several times already, but the way it works is there's 2 fertility. There's ground fertility and access to water, which boosts fertility. So because I'm growing my crops basically on the water, they benefit from the groundwater fertility. So here's the fertility base. So the fertility base of where I am right now is pretty low. It's like 26%, but then it's boosted 50% because it's on the water. Later in the research tree, you do get access pretty early on to water pumps. So water pumps are used to pump water through canals to boost fertility. So I could have put my farms over here. The fertility of the soil over here is 73%, which is about the same as it is here, 73%. But this soil over here doesn't have water. It's just fertile soil. And if I created pumps and then pumped water out to these fields would get higher fertility than what is offered at the lakeside. So that might be, the fertile zones over here might be good for like high yield fruit orchards later on in the game. But because at the start of the game, you don't have access to water pumps and canals, and water pumps and canals are resource intensive and water pumps are labor intensive. It's bad to rely upon water pumping, in the first, like, let's say 10 years of your city, because you're just not going to have a labor pool to support it. I am going to make a change to this house before it gets built. I want this to be too wide. And then the entryway in here to be too wide. There we go. Oh, record lows. Well, we have hearths. So another thing that I could do for this little cul-de-sac is put where it will fit, which is to put hearths in here and a well in here. Hearths and wells, like, apart from their initial cost, don't really have an upkeep. They don't have they require a little bit of janitorial maintenance, but no one works there, so they're a pretty good investment for, you know, housing projects. You assume something like schools are something you have to worry about as your population grows naturally? Yes. And we're 75% done clearing the fields for the next grain farm. As you can see, the estimated harvest for this grain farm this upcoming year is like twice that of last year. Which is pretty good. Now, other things I want to add in here is... let's put a tree. Put a few trees to make it look more harmonious. I'll eventually put in benches. The game's going to warn me that I don't have the furniture for the benches, which is true. I'm just going to put the benches in for now, and then I'll do the same with torches. People like illuminated areas. So this neighborhood is not... oh, I didn't mean to put the bench there. This area, this little cul-de-sac won't be able to be completed until I have furniture for the benches and iron for the torches, but at least I have them placed ahead of time. And then once I'm done with that, I'll roundify everything as much as I can to make it look more rounded in there. Alright, let's take a look at the roundness. So yeah, even the structures I have in there, the inside looks round because, and the inside is where people are, so it doesn't really matter what the outside looks like. The outside I can make look more round, and I was planning on doing it because I have plenty of wood and wood grows on trees. And I'm not too concerned about the wild grain now that I have a significant amount of grain farming going on. I'm also gonna fill in this void here too. So now we're just roundifying everything outside. So if you take a look at the roundness, some of the corners here are showing a fair bit of roundness. And we have space for 41 more people. So that's a hefty sum of people. And we're into the spring. Nice. So you weren't here in the beginning. Explain roundness. Roundness. So some people, some of the races like things to look round, and the Cretonians like round things. It's just their preference. They like buildings that are round. Not all races do. They also like harmony, so they like to be around trees. So each race has their own preferences. Cretonians are agrarian, and they like round things and be around trees. And that makes Cretonians happy. So I'm just fulfilling what makes them happy. So we have this little agrarian neighborhood for them. Okay, I'm gonna have you guys decide the next project. What should the next project be? Fruit orchards, vegetable farms, or wood cutting and carpentry? pick between those 3 projects. So 2 are food-based, and 1 is for the markets and the like. We already have another grain farm that is just getting kicked off now. How is our maintenance looking? Oh, yeah, we basically have no upkeep required with the 2 janitors. So I hired 3. I didn't need 3. Easily got away with 2. I am going to change this structure a little bit so that I can run a road there. So it's like a overhang. It's like people can pass underneath, but it also will look roundish. So it's an awning. I just invented awnings. You are welcome. Alright, looks like woodcutting and carpentry. I'm just going to call that a little early, because it was and obviously going to win the poll. So, I'm going to pause real quick and take a look. There is... So the trees happen to be... See, here's the issue. The trees are generally placed where soil is fertile. So if I take a look at the fertility map, the ground fertility, ignoring the soil, there are some trees here that could be managed by a woodcutter that is not part of the farming zone, because the forests over here also happen to be kind of fertile, and they're also farther. So I think what I'll do is I'll set up my tree farming for these clusters of trees here. And the way this works is you set up a woodcutter, and it can be placed on trees and will sustainably produce wood. So this is not a lot of trees, but I don't want to use the fertile shoreline. 8 workers is probably a bit big, so I'm going to set it up small to start. So we'll do 4 workers. I'm going to add some auxiliary structures in here to increase the efficiency. It's probably bigger than it needs to be. No, that's actually exactly what it needed to be. And then some internal storage. And done. And then it's like chicken and the egg, because this woodcutter needs furniture to be able to be built because of the auxiliary facilities here. So we're going to need a carpenter. So I'm going to set up a carpenter. Well, before I set up the carpenter, I want to set up where the warehouse of wood is going to be. So let's start running roads to it. So we have this 2-wide road that I'll have come out west and up like this. Now the woodcutter itself, it's not like gated or anything. So I don't really need to worry too much about setting it up like walls or fences or anything like that. It can be open. There's no need to add fences. That just increases cost. But what I will do is stick a warehouse for the wood right across the street. And I might want this to be a significantly large warehouse to store like all the colonies, the main supply of the colony's wood. It's also important to note, once a building, and I'll do this on purpose, once a building gets too large, this yellow zone is not supported by walls. Essentially, you can't have like infinitely large buildings, but you can stick, if you subtract, you can stick like columns or pillars to hold up a roof if you need. I don't generally build that way unless a building has to be really huge, like temples, for instance. Temples are like larger shrines, and they tend to be enormous. So in the case of temples, it can be useful to have pillars and columns. So this is just going to be a 1,600 storage of of wood. So a lot of wood storage. And I left some trees up out here unmaintained so that this can scale. We can add more wood cutters if we need more supply of wood. So then we have the main wood store. And then across from the main wood store is going to be another warehouse. I'll just copy the area of this warehouse. I'll put this one. Well, this one could be smaller, so I'm not going to do it just yet. I want to first put in the carpenter. So across from the wood storage will be a carpenter. And it's going to be laid out very similar to my... And this is just like a layout I like. Very similar to the bakery. A 7x9 with auxiliary stations in the corners and a workbench, or a storage rather, in the middle for internal storage. And I'm going to stick a door here and a door here. And that will allow us to start making furniture. And then just north of that, I'm also going to stick a warehouse for its produced goods for the furniture that we make, attached to the warehouse itself. And then I'm going to refurnish this room to also include a door to the north, so that there's like essentially no walking required from our woodcutter. Okay. Then the other thing is the woodcutters and the carpenters don't I don't want them living here. That's too far. So we're also going to want to include the hearths, the wells, everything that that like a cul-de-sac living in this area would want. I don't want to set up the houses yet, because what I want to do is I want to build the carpenter, figure out its noise, and the woodcutter, figure out where the noise is coming from, and then build the houses subsequently, so that the houses aren't noisy. So, the road going out. I don't need 4 delivery men anymore. I keep forgetting to do that. I can't wait until I don't have to do, like, a forage economy. And update the priority. Build wood cutting and carpentry and houses. Thank you for tuning in to Songs of Syx, which originally streamed live on Twitch as a marathon November 23rd. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below, but please keep in mind I'm not looking for feedback. This episode was cut from a marathon, and the marathon was streamed one time only, so feedback cannot be incorporated. If you would like to join a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams, and if you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. A link to my Patreon page can be found there as well, if that interests you. Thank you so very much for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream of another game. Farewell, my fellow Cretonians.